Let me paint you a picture. Marcus is 34 years old. He just got a raise that pushed his salary to $92,000 a year. That's more money than his dad ever made, more money than most of his friends make. And yet, every Sunday night, he opens his banking app, stares at his checking account balance, and feels this quiet panic settle into his chest. $340. That's what's left. 8 days before payday. Meanwhile, his coworker Diane, same office, same building, has been there 3 years longer. She's talking about taking an unpaid sabbatical next summer. Just taking time off, traveling, breathing. She earns $54,000 a year. Marcus has done the math 3 times because he refuses to believe it. She earns $38,000 less than him, and she's the one planning a sabbatical. How is that possible? Here's the thing. It's not about how much you make. It never was. It's about something almost nobody talks about openly. And once you see it, you genuinely cannot unsee it. Welcome to Smart Invest. And I spend way too much time thinking about the hidden costs of the stuff we own. If you're someone who earns a decent income but still feels like money just vanishes every month, like you're running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. The real problem nobody names. Okay, so let's go back to Marcus and Diane. When I describe the scenario to people, the first thing they assume is that Marcus has a secret problem, a gambling issue, credit card debt from something embarrassing, some hidden financial skeleton. Nope. Marcus doesn't gamble. He doesn't have a substance problem. He pays his bills on time. He's not doing anything obviously wrong. What Marcus has is what I call a maintenance lifestyle. A life where every single dollar he earns is already spoken for before it arrives, because the things he owns require it. His 70-inch TV required a premium wall mount. The wall mount required a soundbar to complete the setup. The soundbar required a receiver. His car, a 2022 model he upgraded to 2 years ago because his previous car felt old, runs him $680 a month between the payment and insurance. His apartment is 1,100 square feet, and at least 200 of those square feet exist purely to store things he doesn't use. Diane's life looks different. Her car is paid off, her apartment is tidy, not sparse, just intentional. She doesn't own a single item she wouldn't notice if it disappeared. And every month, before she spends $1 on anything discretionary, 22% of her paycheck automatically moves into investments and savings. Same city, same cost of living. Diane has 14 months of expenses saved. Marcus has $340. This is the stuff trap, and it's absolutely everywhere. The cost you never see on the receipt. Here's what most people don't realize about the things they buy. Everything you own costs you money twice. The first cost is the obvious one, the price tag, the checkout total, the number that shows up on your statement. That's the cost everyone thinks about. The second cost? Almost nobody calculates it, and in many cases, it's bigger than the first one. Think about it this way. Let's say you buy a rowing machine for $800. You're motivated, you've got a plan, you're gonna get in shape. Great. But that rowing machine takes up roughly 35 square feet of floor space when you include the clearance you need to actually use it. In most mid-sized American cities, interior living space runs you somewhere between $1.50 and $2.50 per square foot per month in rent. That's a conservative estimate. So that rowing machine is costing you an additional $50 to $90 every single month just to exist in your home, whether you use it or not. Over 2 years, that's potentially $2,160 in hidden rent on an $800 machine. And that's before we talk about the mental cost. There's actual research on this. A study from Princeton's Neuroscience Institute found that visual clutter in your environment competes for your attention on a neurological level. It literally reduces your brain's ability to process information and increases cortisol, which is your primary stress hormone. Your stuff is stressing you out in ways you can't consciously detect. And then there's opportunity cost, which is the sneakiest cost of all. Every dollar locked up in stuff you don't use, it's a dollar that isn't compounding in your favor. That $15,000 home gym setup, the squat rack, the bench, the weights, the flooring, the mirror, if that money had gone into a basic index fund earning historical average returns of around 7% annually, it would become roughly $42,000 in 15 years. You didn't just buy equipment, you bought equipment instead of $42,000. That reframe is uncomfortable, I know, but you need to sit with it. The replacement test, your new best tool. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but I need most of the stuff I own. I'm not some hoarder. And look, I believe you. Most people aren't hoarders. But most people are also dramatically overestimating how much of what they own they actually value. Here's a simple test I want you to try. Walk through your home tonight. Pick up or just look at every item you encounter and ask yourself one question. If this disappeared tomorrow morning, would I spend money to replace it? Not, would I miss it? Not, is it sentimental? Specifically, would you open your wallet or your banking app and spend actual money to bring it back into your life? Be honest. The bread maker that's been in the cabinet for 2 years, would you replace it? Probably not. The stack of books you keep meaning to read but haven't touched since you bought them, would you replace them? Honestly. That second set of dishes, the blender you replaced with a better blender but kept anyway, the box of cables in your closet that you're saving just in case. Here's what this test does. It forces you to separate the things that genuinely add value to your life from the things that are just there through inertia. They exist because you bought them once, and getting rid of things feels like waste. So they stay, and they stay, and they stay. Those things have negative financial value. They cost you space, they cost you mental energy, and they cost you time. Time spent organizing around them, cleaning near them, thinking about them. Diane runs this test on her home every 3 months. It takes her about 45 minutes. Marcus hasn't done it once. The upgrade trap is wealth destruction in disguise. This is where it gets really interesting and a little uncomfortable. There's a behavioral pattern that quietly destroys the finances of otherwise smart, successful people. I call it the upgrade loop. And it works like this. You buy something. It works well. Time passes, a newer version comes out. Your current version still works perfectly, but now it feels old. You upgrade. The phone that makes calls, sends emails, runs every app you use, you replace it because it's 2 years old and the new one has a better camera you'll use once to photograph your brunch before going back to your usual habits. The average American, according to data from consumer intelligence research partners, upgrades their smartphone every 26 to 31 months. The previous phone often works fine. Over 30 years of adult life, that pattern costs somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 in perfectly unnecessary spending. And that's just phones. Apply the same pattern to cars, laptops, televisions, furniture, kitchen equipment, items people routinely replace not because they failed, but because novelty wore off, and you're looking at a lifetime wealth leak that can easily exceed $200,000. $200,000. That would be $780,000 if invested consistently over a 30-year period at a 7% return. Almost $1 million, evaporated through upgrade culture. Diane has owned the same laptop for 4 years. It works. She has no intention of replacing it until it doesn't. Marcus is already eyeing next year's car models. The rule here is simple but requires real conviction. Something becomes replaceable only when it genuinely cannot perform its function anymore. Boredom is not a malfunction. Wanting something shinier is not a malfunction. Marketing convincing you that you have a problem you don't actually have, that's not a malfunction in your device. That's a malfunction in your thinking. The psychology, why we actually buy stuff. Look, I want to step back for a second because the rules in math only work if you understand what's actually driving the behavior underneath. Most people who are trapped in the stuff cycle cannot explain why they buy what they buy. Ask them and they'll talk about deals or quality or needing it for a project they keep postponing. But underneath those rationalizations, researchers who study consumer behavior, including work from Dr. Rick Peters at Tilburg University, have found something consistent. A significant portion of discretionary consumption is driven by one of two emotional needs: the need for status or the need for relief from anxiety. And here's the cruel irony. Financial insecurity creates anxiety. Anxiety drives spending on things that provide temporary relief, but that spending deepens the financial insecurity, which creates more anxiety, which drives more spending. It's a cycle that feeds itself, and income doesn't automatically break it. Marcus got a raise, and his anxiety didn't go down. It went sideways. He just had more money cycling through the loop faster. Diane broke the loop differently. She automated her savings first before she could spend it and watched her account balance grow for 6 consecutive months. That growth began satisfying the same psychological need that spending used to fill: security, proof that she was going to be okay. Once her savings account was telling her that story, her urge to buy things to feel better dropped significantly. The stuff was never really about the stuff. It was about what the stuff was supposed to represent. And once you find a better way to represent it, through genuine financial stability, the pool weakens dramatically. The lifestyle multiplier: what nobody warns you about big purchases. Here's what most people don't realize about major purchases. Almost nothing is a standalone purchase. I want you to think about someone who decides to get into golf. Sounds reasonable. A bucket list thing. They buy a starter set of clubs. $400. Reasonable. But then they need a bag. $80. Golf shoes. $120. Gloves. Balls that disappear into water hazards. A rangefinder, because everyone at the course has one. Lessons, because the clubs aren't the problem apparently. A subscription to a golf app. New shorts, because their existing athletic wear doesn't breathe the right way. A $400 purchase becomes a $1,500 ecosystem before they've played 10 rounds. And if interest in the hobby fades, which statistically it often does, they own $1,500 in equipment that maybe gets offered on Facebook Marketplace for $200 2 years later. The boat has a trailer, a hitch on the car, storage fees in the off-season, winterization costs, registration, insurance, and a surprising amount of weekend time devoted to maintenance rather than actually being on the water. The backyard pool needs chemicals, a cleaning system, a cover, likely some landscaping to make the surrounding area look intentional, and adds meaningfully to your homeowner's insurance and energy costs. Before any major purchase, add up the full ecosystem. What will this thing need to exist in my life? What does it connect to? What does it require? Multiply your initial estimate by 1.5 to 2 and see if the purchase still feels as compelling. Often, it doesn't. Defining enough, the finish line most people never draw. I want to ask you something that sounds simple, but will probably take you longer to answer than you expect. How much is enough? Not how much would be nice, not how much would you take if someone offered it. How much do you actually need to feel genuinely comfortable, secure, and satisfied? Most people have never seriously answered that question, and the consequence is that their lifestyle expands automatically with their income, leaving them no richer in any meaningful way at $120,000 than they felt at $75,000. The number goes up. The feeling stays the same. The gap between income and expenses never actually grows. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it's arguably the most financially destructive force affecting middle and upper middle class earners today. Diane answered that question 4 years ago. She decided that $42,000 a year covers everything she genuinely needs and values: housing, food, transportation, experiences, modest luxuries, with room to feel comfortable. When her income has grown beyond that, the excess has gone straight to investments. She doesn't feel deprived, she feels free. Write down your number. What does enough actually look like for your life? Not the life you think you should want, but the life that would genuinely feel complete and satisfying. Be specific: housing type, transportation, experiences you actually prioritize. When you have that number, you have a finish line, and everything you earn beyond it becomes fuel for freedom, rather than fuel for accumulation. Measuring wealth differently. The conventional way people measure wealth is by what they have: the house, the car, the wardrobe, the watch. Here's a different measure. Ask yourself, what can I choose? Can you leave a job that's making you miserable without panicking about next month's rent? Can you take 3 months off if a family member needs you? Can you say no to a high-paying opportunity that would compromise something you actually care about? Those choices are the real definition of wealth, and they're only available to people who've built a genuine gap between what they earn and what they spend. Marcus earns $92,000 and has almost no choices. He cannot afford to leave his job, he cannot take time off, he cannot absorb an unexpected $3,000 expense without going into debt. His income looks like freedom from the outside. From the inside, it's a cage he keeps decorating. Diane earns $54,000 and has genuine options. She's not rich by any conventional measure, but she is free in the ways that actually matter when life gets complicated, and life always gets complicated. Every purchase you make is a trade. You are exchanging money for an object, but you are also exchanging optionality for possession. Before you buy, ask yourself, is this thing worth reducing my ability to make free choices about my own life? Sometimes the answer is yes. Often it isn't. All right, so let me give you something concrete. This week, do the replacement test. Walk through your home and identify 10 items you would not spend money to replace if they vanished. Sell, donate, or discard them. Notice how it feels. Uncomfortable at first, then lighter. This month, implement a 48-hour waiting rule on any non-essential purchase over $50. Write it down, wait, and see how many of those desires survive the wait. Research suggests roughly 70% of impulse purchase urges fade within 24 to 48 hours if not acted on immediately. This quarter, sit down and define your enough number. Get specific, write it down, put it somewhere you'll see it regularly. And before your next significant purchase, calculate the full ecosystem cost, not just the sticker price, but everything that comes with it. Marcus and Diane aren't fictional characters to me. They represent a real fork in the road that most people hit somewhere in their late 20s and 30s. One path looks like success. The other actually is success. The difference isn't income. It isn't luck. It's whether you consciously decided what your life is supposed to be for, and whether your spending reflects that decision. The math strongly favors the person who owns their possessions over the person their possessions own. Start small, start today, and build from there. If this gave you something useful to think about, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear it. Subscribe if you want to keep building toward real financial freedom, not just the appearance of it. I'll see you in the next one.